Let's rock and roll. Marcus King, welcome to Biscuits and Jam.
Howdy.
So where am I reaching you right now?
I'm actually in Park City, Utah today.
Okay. And you have a gig tonight?
Yeah, I'm playing tonight for the Park City Song Summit with a couple of my band members and Eric Krasno, a good friend of mine. And we're doing a dinner with a guest chef, Andrew Zimmerman. It's just a great big soiree out here.
Zimmerman, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, you're a long way from home, back in South Carolina, but hopefully you're getting back there pretty soon.
Yeah, I'll be back in South Carolina next week, actually. So it'd be good to get back to my roots.
Well, listen, I've got to say, congrats on the new album. First of all, it's just amazing. It sounds so good. It's called Darling Blue, which seems to have a lot of different meanings for you. Talk to me about that title a little bit and why that felt right.
Yeah, that title, it was kind of pitched to me from our creative director, Sutton Davidson, and I really just fell in love with it, the concept of it right away. It was kind of plucked from a song I wrote called Carry Me Home, and I refer to the Blue Ridge Mountains as my darling Blue Ridge Mountains, because in that song I was trying to write a love letter to the area of the country that I come from. So we just took Darling Blue, and we all really fell in love with that title pretty immediately. So we took that and ran. But it has, like you said, it's got quite a few different meanings, you know. Being blue it's not something I'm new to. So, it's got a few different meanings. If you listen through the record, you can hear those different themes.
There's a melancholy blue, and there's, kind of feeling down. Of course, there's a blues. It's got all kinds of meanings for you that come through in every song. And I want to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but you mentioned the Blue Ridge Mountains, and you're from Greenville, South Carolina, which is right there. Is it kind of the foothills of the Blue Ridge, would you say?
Yeah, the Greenville is the foothills.
Well, tell me a little bit about the house and the neighborhood where you grew up there. Kind of paint a picture of it for me.
I grew up in an area of Greenville that's kind of a more rundown area now. It was kind of a, turn of the century, kind of a blue collar, hardworking, middle class America neighborhood. My grandmother's house was next door to my dad's house, and everybody just worked really hard. And I came up, my dad was 43 when I was born, and my grandparents were part of the greatest generation, and they pretty much raised me. So I grew up on Sanford and Son and Andy Griffith, and I'd spend a lot of time with them, or I'd spend a lot of time just by myself with my guitar and chasing my sister and her friends around. And when I was 11, we moved out to Piedmont, South Carolina, and I went to middle school through high school out there, and that was a little more out in the country, and I split my time between there and down at my stepfather and mother's farm, I guess you could call it, out on a whole lot of acreage, and just, out in the woods, just being a kid and working on that land. Then when I was in 10th grade, I started studying jazz theory over at the Fine Arts Center in Greenville, South Carolina. I went there for 2 years.
What did your folks do for a living?
My grandfather was a career serviceman in the Air Force, and he played country and Western music his whole life. And my dad played rock and roll music and country and Western and blues music, and later on gospel music as well. And as did my uncles. In my family, music was really kind of the family trade, just like, family of mechanics or family of plumbers or whatever other blue collar trade family that there could be. It was looked at as a viable way to make a living and an honest living at that. So it was something that was encouraged from a young age.
I had a musician on this podcast a while ago named Nikki Lane, who's from Greenville.
Yeah.
And she grew up kind of in the country a little bit and talked about riding around on four-wheelers and that kind of thing. I wonder if you had any of that experience when y'all moved out there.
I never really had many friends, which I guess you could take it however you want. I had a hard time making friends. And then when I started making friends, I realized that I just didn't have anything in common with them. And I was just interested in music, and I was just interested in getting the hell out of there. And a lot of the kids I went to school with, they're still there. And I mean, that's their prerogative. That's what they wanted to do. I just didn't have anything at that school that I was interested in at all. And it just made me really miserable. I was just, every day going into that school, I was just so, forlorn. I was not happy. It was just, that was like it was really depressing times, really. And when I finally left and I started traveling, I was able to kind of come to life a little bit. So I never really had much experience like out and about, or like, I'd go walking out in the woods and stuff, but we never really had any money for four-wheelers or dirt bikes or anything like that.
Anything like that. You talk a lot about South Carolina and about home. It's interesting that you kind of, you wanted to get out of there. I wonder if you came to appreciate it, or if it's, really, if you think about it in a much different way now, when you kind of think about home. I mean, you've written so much about it, and it's just, it's so infused in your music.
I could say, I mean, when I was stuck there, I definitely had a different perspective on it. And I feel like, to me, I think in South Carolina, we've got like, one of the greatest exports is music. And I felt like I needed to allow it to be just that, an export. So I needed to get out, and I needed to bring it to the people, because not everybody's going to come to South Carolina and embrace the culture and see how we do things there. So I felt like I needed to get out there and really put it up for sale. So that's what I was doing when I moved to Nashville, and I wanted to go and make a great big splash in the music scene. And I wanted to drive the greatest, biggest Cadillac and the biggest, tallest cowboy hat, and make sure everybody knew that I was there. Because, if I was doing a session, I was doing a session if you were in the room. But if you were driving by, I was in there too, because my Cadillac would be out front. So I wanted to let everybody know that South Carolina was there and there to stay. So I'm very proud of where I come from. And when I get the opportunity to go home, I love it so much. And the Blue Ridge Mountains is just, to me, it speaks to me, it sings to me, and it embraces me. And it just, it's what I'm working towards, If I ever get the time to settle down a little bit more, I'd like to have some land in the Blue Ridge Mountains and raise some youngins up out there.
You're putting your state on the map in a lot of ways when it comes to music. I mean, obviously there's been some great musicians that have come from South Carolina, but it doesn't have the reputation of a Nashville or New Orleans or a Memphis. But I think there's more and more people coming out of that state. People are really starting to pay attention. Marcus, one thing that Greenville is known for is food these days. And I mean, it's really kind of incredible. That's another great export of that town. I always talk about food a little bit on this podcast, and I'm wondering, what you kind of grew up with and who was doing the cooking and what was on the table in your house?
Man, I was really lucky when I grew up. We didn't really have any money, but my grandmother and my grandfather really knew how to make a paycheck last. So with them doing the shopping, my grandmother was really good about, you know, stocking the fridge to make sure she could feed everybody the whole week. And on Sunday, we'd get a real treat. We'd have to eat spaghetti a few nights, maybe hot dogs. You repurpose the spaghetti chili, for hot dogs, and then you have maybe buttered noodles or something. But then on Sunday, she'd make a roast. And my grandmother had this crazy, like, fusion style of cooking because she grew up in Munich, Germany. And that's where my grandfather met her when he was stationed there. He brought her over to the Blue Ridge Mountains in the 50s. So she had these really great recipes for potato dumplings and sauerkraut and all the different types of wursts. And she just kind of fused it together with this like really traditional American cuisine, you know. And we'd have like a pot roast and gravy, and she would make dumplings, and she'd make greens, and she would do schnitzel sometime, like a fried pork chop. Sometimes she would make breakfast. She'd make crepes, like really thin pancakes rolled up. So I was really blessed at a young age to be exposed to like different culture food. And that was kind of the introduction to me that made me want to travel for a living, really, and just dig on all the other different cuisines. But I was really lucky to grow up with that kind of cooking going on.
This was on your mom's side or your dad's side?
On my dad's side.
On your dad's side. Is there a German kind of population, a strong population in that area, or was that just more unique to your family?
I'd say it was fairly unique to my family. There was not a whole lot of other German folks in that area, from what I recall. She had one German friend named Marion, and they hated each other. But it was the only person they could speak their native tongue with, and they would just go at it. When Marion would come over, they would just bicker for hours, and then she'd leave. I always thought that was funny.
What was your grandmother's name?
Her name was Gertrude. Gertrude Kirscher was her maiden name, and she went by Trudy. And we called her Oma, which is, grandma in German.
There's so many musicians that I've talked to on this podcast that grew up in the church in some way or had a connection to the church. And, that's definitely something that comes through in your music. Seems to have been a presence in your life. I mean, you had a video a few years ago that was for the well, and that was kind of set in this tent revival. And I'm just wondering at what kind of influence that might have had on you as a musician.
I was always really moved when I could hear a sermon from a preacher with true conviction. And, my pastor growing up, Steve Bowen, he just passed away a couple of years ago. And he was a very important figure in my whole upbringing. And we grew up going to Set Free was the church we were members at. Steve Bowen was the pastor, and Ray Riddle was the assistant pastor. And they were both, reformed. Ray was a biker, and he was a member of the South Carolina Outlaws chapter, and they were both just
this is the pastor.
Yeah, they were both of the world, and they were both as secular as could be. And then they both had just wonderful testimonies about how they found God and why it was important for them, and just how they were led to their conviction. And I was always really moved by that kind of thing. And those were the two that actually, because Ray Riddle was a drummer. He played with my grandfather, and my grandfather, he was in and out of church his whole life, but by the time I was born, he was in church, and he played at his church. My dad played at our church, and my uncle, actually, he ended up branching out and starting his own church, and we call him Ron Boy. And my other uncle, his twin brother, Don Boy, played bass guitar, and my dad played guitar. And they were the church band, and I'd get up and play with them. And we would do traditional gospel, but they would also do more like rock and roll numbers, kind of a secular backbeat, but religious lyrics. And I was always really moved by anyone that had conviction, anyone that was dedicated to the craft. So I would say, especially early on, I just tried to be Steve Bowen, my pastor. I just wanted to speak to the audience like that, because that was the most public speaking I'd seen when I was growing up.
I have not been lucky enough to see you play live yet, but I've heard your shows described as a kind of spiritual experience, and I'm wondering if that's something that you kind of think about when you step onto that stage. You know, is that something that you want people to feel or to kind of walk away with, that there is something kind of spiritual about it?
Well, I'm honored if people feel that way, because that's what it is for me. When I go out and play, that's the only way I could really get through it. If I took myself in any way too seriously, or really thought about, like, wonder what they think about this song, or if I got too self-aware, and I talked to the band openly about this, like my anxiety, my self-awareness as an individual is such that I've always likened it to the gospel, because it is a spiritual experience for me. And when I'm out there, it's a form of transcendentalism, really. If you can completely have a death of your ego and allow yourself to be a vessel, and allow this this Holy Spirit, or whatever you want to call it, flow through you, and completely feel it, then it becomes something for your fellow man to tap into. But once you start to think about, like, how do I look, or how do I sound, or, who's that in the front row? I wonder what their deal is, like that kind of, once you start thinking about that, I've always thought about, like, Peter on the water when he was walking with Christ. And as soon as he took his eyes off Christ, he sunk like a stone. And that's the analogy I've always put to it, because once you start to think about all this stuff that doesn't matter, it tends to fall apart. But if we can all show up and tap into this one thing that's so much stronger than any of us, I think that's probably the spiritual experience people refer to.
Marcus, your dad and your grandfather were musicians. You said it's been in your family for a long time, for several generations. And it was kind of, it was their trade. You have reached levels of artistry with the guitar and with your music that, probably are beyond what they could have imagined. But I'm wondering if there are lessons that they taught you that have kind of stayed with you, things you learned from them that are still relevant to you as a performer or as a songwriter to this day.
My father, my grandfather, they really had the goods to be a lot more than weekend warriors. And my father, he came close numerous times, but he always wanted to be, a member of a band. He wanted to be the quiet one in the background. He never really wanted to take it by the horns and be a leader per se. And he always educated me to be a leader and to be the main guy, for lack of a better way of putting it. He always taught me to go in and to be proud of what I do. My grandfather always educated me in humility. And, I think that's another good lesson that you learn as in a religious household. There's a lot of just good morals that you learn, and humility, I think, is the biggest one, because you're serving something that's greater than you. You're able to approach music with, humility, and it really it does change your approach. But my father and my grandfather basically taught me about confidence and taught me about harnessing what it is that I do and taking it by the horns, but without being an asshole. Because there's other ways of doing it. But I was really lucky to have that when I was 14 and 15 years old and playing in bars. I really needed a little extra street knowledge to help me get by, and that's where they really helped me out big time. And they continue to help me out.
Well, I know that, Marcus, you've been through some tough times and had a lot of ups and downs over the years. Have they helped you get through some of those when you probably were, when you were younger and, you had this talent that you probably didn't even know what to do with? Did they help you get through some of the rough patches?
I was talking with someone the other day about it's difficult sometimes, when you grow up as an artist with an artistic kind of sensibility, especially, in a Southern male environment, and all the other guys are not as sensitive as you are, but you have this artistic kind of attitude. It can be really confusing. It can be really troubling at times because you just tapped into something a little deeper than they are. You got a little deeper roots, and it's something that my family was aware of, and they taught me how to use music as a escape, to use it as a form of therapy, and I learned how to do that, and harnessed it, and I'm thankful for that. But I had a lot of loss and a lot of heartache from a young age. I let music take me as far as I could with that, and then substance abuse kind of got in the way because that's a little bit quicker of a fix than music can be, and it's a little bit more of a immediate serotonin boost that you want to get. So I kind of allowed that to cloud my judgment for a while. And it's easy to do when you're gone from home and you don't have to, sit with your family. So I let that take the wheel for a while, but now I feel like I'm back to the original goal.
You've got so many exciting things happening right now. I want to talk about the album a little bit more. And starting with the band. My son saw you play in Virginia a few months ago, and he said that there was something really special about the dynamic of the band and the chemistry that y'all have. And this is the first album that you've had with them as the Marcus King Band in a few years. Just talk to me about that, about the chemistry of this group of guys that you're playing with.
We haven't done a full band record since 2018. And, the band is really my drummer and I. And it went through some different iterations. And we had members come and we had members go. But the band is really, what it is now is really the band. Because for the first time since we really started this thing, we have 5 members in a group that all have a positive attitude and a positive outlook, not only about our tour, but about music in general. And there's a real familial bond that we all share as a group, and it translates onto the stage. And Jack and myself, we've been working together for 13 years, and our guitar player and keyboard player, they've been with us for going on 4 years, and our bass player going on 2 years. And our horn players come in and come out, and our fiddle player the same. So, we've got such a big family and I'm really thankful. And, your son is right. Like that, it really translates to the stage because we really have a deep love for one another and respect for one another and just a joy to be around one another. So I'm thankful.
Well, it seems to be coming through in the music. It's coming through to the audience. It's coming through on these songs. Um, I want to ask you about the first song on the album, which is called On and On.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way it starts out. There's a line in there where you say, you know, I've come a real long way. Talk to me about that song and why you wanted to kick things off with that one.
That's kind of an opportunity to just, I think we've all at times just wanted to let somebody know how we were doing, and you didn't really know how else to do it. So short of making a phone call or writing a letter, a good song can do the same trick. So that's kind of the idea behind this song, and just catching people up to speed on what drugs I'm taking, what drugs I ain't taking, how the sobriety's going, that kind of thing. Because for me, there's a recurring theme in the record, and it touches on it slightly in this song is, my battle with like sobriety and like how boring it can be, and just like reframing the way I look at it and taking it one day at a time. And, I kind of touch on, the idea that I'm sober again in that song, and it just felt like the perfect tune to open the record with.
It's a great one, and it kind of sets the stage for everything to come. But there's a lot of ups and downs on this record. I mean, there's a really plaintive one called Die Alone, where you talk about getting back to Greenville. And it sounds like somebody who misses home, and it's funny. You were talking earlier about how you just could not wait to get out of Dodge, when you were a kid. But now you're on the road a lot, you're traveling all over the place. And it seems like you do think about home a good bit.
That particular song, it was really all about the day that I met my wife and the day prior to that. And just kind of where I was at mentally was, short of, taking my own life at home in Nashville, my, kind of thought process was to go out and do all the things that I enjoyed doing, music and otherwise, to the fullest and to the extent that it put me into a box. So that was kind of the plan. And, that's why the line says, when the bus gets back to Greenville, I'll already be back home, because, that was kind of the plan, was to just kind of burn myself out and just go back to my real home a lot sooner than I'd like to now. But as fate has a funny way of working, I met my wife 2 days into that plan or exit strategy or whatever you want to call it. So I'm glad I met her then.
Yeah, I'll say, well, yeah, congrats on everything that's happened there. Marcus, there's so many people that you collaborated with on this record, and you worked with Caitlin Butts and Jesse Wells and Jamie Johnson and Billy Strings and Lainey Wilson. So many. I'm just wondering if there's one that, that kind of stands out, or that felt like an example of, the kind of collaborations that you wanted to have here.
I'm very lucky to have, the friends that I do, and the friendships that I've managed to, to make in Nashville, because I've never been really good at making friends. We touched on that before, but there's certain people that enter into your lives that just shine so brightly that you get hooked on them and you just want to be around them. And Lainey Wilson is one of those people. Jamie Johnson is one of those people. He officiated mine and my wife's wedding.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. Billy Strings was my neighbor when I moved to Nashville. Meg McCree is one of those people. It would be hard for me to pinpoint one specific one. I'm crazy about everybody that that worked on this record with us. It's somebody that's touched me in my life. I'm just proud to call them all friends. So, I'm just a blessed man.
Let me ask you about Lainey. Did y'all get to do some writing together? What did that look like with her?
The way Lainey and I wrote, actually, or the way we met was we got paired on a write together. Probably like, 7 or 8 years ago now. But that's how we met initially, and then I got together with her and my buddy Meg McCree, and we just got together at Lainey's house, and she brought in that idea for Here Today. She is one of the most talented individuals I know on the stage, but also off the stage. She's a damn good writer, and she brought in the Here Today hook, and I really liked it. And I thought we were writing it for her record because it was so good. I thought she'd want to keep it for herself, but I actually ended up cutting it, and I felt really lucky I got to cut that one.
That's great. That's great. Well, she's terrific. I've met her not long ago, and she's got that, as big as she's gotten, she's still got that small town Louisiana. Just feels like somebody you could talk to in a coffee shop or wherever.
Oh man, she's as real as they come. That's my buddy.
Marcus, I want to talk about something else you're doing, and that is called the Marcus King Family Reunion, which is in Charleston. This is coming up in just a couple weeks. And, talk about coming back home and bringing a lot of your friends together, and doing something really special there. Why did this feel like the right time to do this?
We wanted the festival to come back. We brought it back last year, and that was our first one. It's an annual festival that we do, and this year we decided to bring it down to Charleston, and it's only going to keep getting bigger. It's going to keep getting more grandiose. I tend to have really great big ideas, and I've got a really, really good team behind me that helps me make these dreams a reality. So the festival is just another extension of these dreams that I have, and a tangible one at that. And we've got so many great big ideas, and this year it feels like a relaunch for this festival. We started it back in 2018, and we did a couple years up in Black Mountain. We did 1 year in Simpsonville, and we had our friend Nikki Lane, who you mentioned earlier. She came and performed at that, and we had the Avett brothers. And this year we're doing it in Charleston, South Carolina, and we've got Jamie Johnson, we've got Stephen Wilson Jr., Molly Tuttle, we've got Pearl, we've got Joshua Ray Walker, Hiscolt and Messenger. We've got some of my favorite bands, and that's the concept of the festival is, it's a family reunion. So my family, my band's family, everybody gets together. We break bread, we fellowship, we enjoy each other's company, and then we make some music. And why not open that up to the public? Because, that's the idea. That's what the show's all about, is feeling like we're getting to know one another. And that's the idea of the festival. And all the bands are hand-selected by myself and my guys, people that we've connected with over the years on the road, and people that feel like family to us. And it's hard to get all of us together sometimes. So if we make it a ticketed event, then we know they're going to show up.
And you got to show up too if you're selling tickets, right?
That's right.
Marcus, you've played at so many festivals. A million of them over the years. What are some things that you wanted to be different about this one?
Well, this year, I guess, what I love about festivals in the original sense is just being able to cross-pollinate with your friends and people you don't get to see every day. It's truly the spirit of a festival is the collaborative element of it. And with our festival, we don't like to have any closed stages. We like to have open stages for the artists, because a lot of times you got power trip stage managers that, I've gone in festivals in the past to see friends of mine perform at other stages and been turned away. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody that you're playing the tracks or whatever the thing I'm going to do. I mean, just let me come watch my buddies perform so I don't get hounded. Um, but, I mean, there is an element of like having to maintain some kind of order and peace in a festival, but it doesn't have to be so, militant, as it were. So we've got more of a familial energy at our festival, and I'd say like Willie's Luck Reunion is probably about as close as I can. I'm just trying to get like Willie, man, like all of us.
Yeah. Do you have special ties to Charleston? I mean, is that a place where you've spent a lot of time over the years?
Yeah, I used to go every year with my family, my grandparents and my dad and my sister. We'd get one motel room, and me and my sister and my dad be in one bed, and my grandparents in the other bed, and one motel room by the pool, motel connected to the Waffle House, or I think it's a Huddle House, and that was that was 4 seasons for us, man. And we'd drive to the beach every day, and we'd make sandwiches all week, and then we'd go have us one nice dinner. We didn't really have much money, but just that annual pilgrimage we'd make down to Charleston, we really felt like we were something, man. So this year, I felt like taking it on the road and going on vacation again.
That's great. It's gotten a little pricier since then, but
yeah, oh Lord, I imagine.
We got to talk barbecue for just a second. So I noticed something on the event that you're doing called the All Pro Smoke Show, and I'm a barbecue fan, and I'm just wondering if you have a personal connection to barbecue and why you wanted it to be part of the event.
Well, it's a Carolina staple, and we've got I've got my in-laws from North Carolina, my family from South Carolina, so we've got a little mustard base, we got a little vinegar base, and I guess we're gonna smoke, and we're gonna smoke.
Well, there's some good barbecue in that town, I can tell you that.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it's gotten better and better and better. Every time I go back, there's a new one there. So, well, Marcus, I just have one more question for you. What does it mean to you to be Southern?
I'm very proud to be Southern. It's an honor. I love American music, and for me, my favorite styles of American music all seem to have been birthed in the South, and I'm very proud of that fact, and I'm very thankful. Southern by the grace of God is what they say, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, Marcus, congrats on everything. Congrats on the new record. It's called Darling Blue, and it's fantastic. And congrats on the festival and everything else you have going on. And thanks so much for being on Biscuits and Jam.
Thanks a lot for having me.